when I think about the Better Days company, I think about a more organic way to live life, a more wholesome way to live life. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about on Terabify tends to be about emotional intelligence, about the importance of
Uh-huh.
really just the spaces in between, the things that we don't necessarily society doesn't give us full exposure to until we have to tackle it
Mhm.
ourselves. So thank you so much for joining me. My first question to you for our audiences listening: what made you get into all of this? What inspired you to start such a company?
I would say that, originally it was started by my wife. She started it about, when would it have been? 2012, I think. And she had been exposed via her grandparents who were very holistically minded and who became very advanced chiropractors later in life. Her grandmother had been a nurse, her grandfather had been a medic in Vietnam, and they'd kind of come that route. And later in life, they kind of got out and wanted to look for something that was a little bit more natural, more holistic, where they could really make a direct difference in people's lives. And so she was exposed to that and wanted to go a similar route. Was looking for what her niche was, and she ran across Loomis Enzymes. It was an institute, Loomis Institute back then, and she decided to go into holistic digestive health. And so she carried on with that for a few years. And one of the things that they teach you in the digestive training is that pretty much all of our ailments are either mechanical, emotional, or nutritional. And mechanical, she had some answers for. Nutritional, definitely had some answers for. The emotional component, they say, is worst case scenario. If somebody walks in and they're suffering physical ailments because of depression, anxiety, those sorts of things. There's not a whole lot you can do holistically, pharmaceutically, anything to really sort that out until you've really dealt with what the root cause is. And they were like, you need to really find somebody that you really trust to refer those people out to and then get them back to help them on the digestive journey. And so her thinking was, well, why isn't that person just me? Why don't I be the person I refer to? So she went out and sought out holistically minded alternative to traditional talk and drug therapy. It's called emotional polarity technique. It was created about 30 years ago, like a lot of things, kind of on the backs of some other things, and really fine tuned to try to improve those modalities. And it really speaks to the science of forgiveness. And what she found was is that as she was working with digestive clients, almost all of them were coming in because of emotional issues, trauma, work stress, relationship stress. And as she worked with them from the emotional angle, the digestive symptoms started to disappear. So much so that her business became 99.9%, working from the emotional angle and very little on the digestive. Um, Fast forward from 2011, 2012 to 2020, 2019, and I decided I'd been working in the corporate world for a while and wanted to do something different. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and really just sort of saw the difference that my wife was making in people's lives, the difference that what she did made in my life. And I thought, wow, I can have a job where all I do is help people. That would be amazing. So I went and started off. I got the training to be an emotional polarity technique practitioner, uh, followed up with training to do the holistic, the digestive health, the food enzyme therapies that we do. And so with some added capacity with us and some other people that we know that work in the on the emotional side, we're able to expand our services, expand our personnel. And so now we've got more of a bandwidth for the digestive as well. So really just trying to help people. You've got two minds. You've got one up here, and you've got your guts, your second brain. So wherever that stress and anxiety is coming from, we're really just trying to see if we can come from the appropriate angle. And a lot of times it's both angles, and get people the lives that they want rather than the ones that they have that are driving them crazy.
Right? Like what else can you possibly provide humanity besides a unique perspective on how to deal with issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a wisdom based method. So I have infinite questions about this, obviously, being someone that's interested in this type of stuff. Where I want to start in particular is how do you feel about, I guess, the field of therapy currently for people in our society? Do you think that it's something that's offering the most amount of people a useful alternative to perhaps establishing those friendships, establishing those deeper relationships with our family members, that we can have those conversations? Do you think that uh, at scale, is it a useful practice or a useful system for society to try to I guess expand our notions of emotional intelligence?
Well, I think if we go all the way back, we believe that we were created to be communal creatures, right? We're supposed to be in community, and I think if you look at all of the statistics as far as the reduced amount of friendships that men have, even versus 25, 30 years ago, half the friends, women are finding that they have less friendships. I think COVID really, put a nail in the coffin for a lot of people as far as retreating into their space and not interacting. So many people got sent home to work from home. So now they don't have any outside influences in their day. And that creates a lot of stress. We're not in community and we're not vulnerable and we don't have those positive influences in our life. I saw just a meme yesterday that said, if you look around, if the people around you, um, you know, um, aren't supporting you, you're in a prison, right? You're just locked into this phase of life, right? And there's not anyone that's going to open that lock for you to get you out. Um, so I feel that therapy in general, there's so many different kinds, and we're just one little bitty sliver. You've got the traditional routes, and I think that's fallen. I think there's definitely healing to be had there. It can take a long time. It takes a lot of personal accountability, a lot of drive, and it takes somebody that's willing to go outside of what insurance pays for. I think that's the problem with a
Mm.
lot of just care in general. Is so many of the times the first question we get asked is, "Do you take insurance?" And I find that people have been, unfortunately locked in because of the way that the insurance works and the way that, the bigger organizations are structured, where they try to keep you locked in. And people, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, emotional health, people have handed over the keys to insurance companies and they just deal with whatever they can get out of that. And I think I think it's sad that people are in that space, especially when you've got you're struggling emotionally. The last thing to do is try to how to figure all this out and how to get out of the system and relationship, money issues, and so it can be a real struggle for people. So I think the help is out there. I think the avenue for people getting to it is not necessarily as clear a path as would be beneficial to most people.
Very interesting that you bring in insurances. I mean, I'm a dentist, so
Mm-hmm.
I always think about insurance. And actually, my practice, for my primarily, it takes insurances. Like it's not built
Mm-hmm.
geared towards the cash model, which I think, yeah, would lead to a whole bunch of different treatment modalities. Um, but insurance aside, I suppose I'd love to tackle the I guess the spiritual, the most I guess underlying difficulties for people. I tend to blame essentially the education system for not valuing our individuality enough for us to develop those internal mechanisms of self-soothing and those habits, those strategies to get away from the stresses in life in a healthy way. Um, Growing up in school, did you notice these types of things in your education, or I guess how did the standardization of your education impact the way that you look at mental health and emotional intelligence now?
Well, I mean, so when I was growing up, I mean, we were heavily involved in the church. So I was at church Sunday morning, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, youth group, choir, all of those sorts of things. I graduated in 1986, so I don't think there's any comparison to what the educational system was then to what it is now. Um, Even though, I mean, if anyone that wants to look up what is the Western form of education based on, it was based on the Prussian military trying to create obedient soldiers, right? And then you had industry come in and tap on, well, why don't we have obedient workers as well? So I think any illusion that modern education is created to respect our individuality and validate us and create good human beings. If that happens on the back end, fantastic. But that's just traditionally, and I mean this isn't making it up. Just look up the history of the education system, and that's where it came from. And I think a lot of great people have filtered through it, and I think a lot of people have been stymied by it, and they've been knocked back by it. So I feel like my growing up, I think I grew up in a pretty good time where I think we generally felt, and maybe every generation feels this way, can't speak for everybody, that we were being brought up to be taught how to think, not what to think. And I think that when I went to college, I feel like it was the same way. I feel like, the political divide is so great now that I feel like whether it's true or not, everybody sort of believes that wherever you're at, you're being told what to think. You're just being told to think the wrong thing. You're not where I'm at, right?
Sure.
Um, so, man, I think there's so much room, and I feel like I think accountability and self realization is so important for people to realize. Within any system, you can never completely escape bias, right? You're also not going to escape a system where somebody else is trying to control you, right? They're trying to control your finances, where you go, who you socialize with, whether it's through social media and what the algorithms are. So I think the real key to being able to break out of those systems and the stresses and the anxieties that come through them is really being able to try to rise above that. And if it's always the Nick show, right? I'm going to have a problem healing because my ego is so far in the front. There's no healing when there's ego. You
Hmm.
only have healing when there's vulnerability. So until we can get to the point as individuals where we feel vulnerable, and sometimes it's a gradual process, and sometimes it's a smack in the face with a 2x4. My wife just said she's going to divorce me. Now what do I do, right? Or I lost a child, or I was in a bad car accident, and man, I just can't. I'm scared, right? So sometimes our ego takes a backseat because of trauma. The best way is if it's a self realization that, hey, you know what? I'm in my own way of healing. I saw a great quote from Jimmy Carr, the British comedian. Saw a little clip of him the other day, and he was talking about what somebody else said. So this is friend of a friend talk, right? Um, but it was, if you think somebody's ruined your life, you're right. It's you.
Hmm.
And I think so many of us want to get into the blame game of somebody, I'm a victim of this, or, circumstances or other individuals, that we self sabotage. And it's getting out of that sense of victimhood, being able to open up, see new possibilities, and then have a collaborative effort where someone's going to help you along. And that's where I feel we really stress and really strive to be a collaborative partner in people's healing. It's not, we don't diagnose and we don't prescribe medication. So all we have is you and me, right? Or you and my wife, or you of one of our practitioners. And once again, that takes it back to the basics, back to community, back to people that you're open with, you're vulnerable with. And we guide people through traumas and pain and anxiety and stress. And it all leads down to a route to forgiveness. And the hardest person to forgive is ourselves for our mistakes and for our shame and our guilt. Um, and I feel like educationally, none of that stuff comes up as important, right? It's all about productivity. It's all about the money. It's all about status. And all of those things are the things that ultimately get in the way and delay healing for people for decades. People that come in that are in their 60s that have been miserable for 45 years because they were too embarrassed to talk about something, or they were too attached to the money or the relationship that was harmful to them. So I don't know that education educates people on how to be people. It educates them on how to be commodities for the most part.
And honestly, me and you, Nick, when we first met, that's kind of that was my introduction to the Chamber of Commerce, right? So I'm completely preaching to the choir here, but it's really interesting to hear about the vulnerability aspect of emotional intelligence. It's something that I did a bit of reflecting on. Um, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in particular, when I was going through heartbreak, and it's necessarily something that comes up, I think, in compassionate kind of empath lives, is the concept of vulnerability and how to protect yourself, I suppose, from being overly loyal or being taken for granted in a
Mm,
sense, or if you're in healthcare, for instance, to take on other people's burdens and to carry those forward into your other interactions with patients. And I I told myself that I every time my heart is broken, that the next person I love, I encourage myself to love more.
mhm.
And through a little bit of cognition, I realized that that essentially just means to love myself more in the
Yeah.
process until I find that next person. And vulnerability, I think, is something that really only comes through when someone in our lives, perhaps someone like you, that will say, let, like what Simon Sinek says, let me sit in the mud with you,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
let's soak in the situation together. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people don't get that in life, like valuable mentors, or perhaps parents are a little closed off, or perhaps in school, they didn't know how to ask for help from the school psychologist or the resident wise person at the school, whatever it is, or at the church,
Yeah.
or at the community. Um, so, w- what is your go-to when you're trying to get people to think about, I suppose, the power of vulnerability?
I mean, I think, if you ask anybody, right? Uh, Man, I'd say everybody that sits down in the chair, they will have an issue. I mean, relationship issues are, I mean, they're paramount in people's lives, right? If the people that you're constantly around, you have friction with, you're not going to have a great time every day, right? I mean, and so the amount of people that will say, well, they think, XXXXX, and they're doing this because I'm like, is that what they said? Well, no. Have you asked them about it? Well, no, right? It's us creating our own stories to bolster the view that we want to have, right? Rather than actually confronting people. Because to confront them is awkward. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be able to hear exactly what you didn't want to hear. You know, nobody goes down a rabbit hole and finds gold, right? They only find more rabbit holes, and it only gets scarier and darker and deeper. Um, so I think there's a point where people feel like, men especially, man, I'm not going to talk about that. That's not me. I'm not about all them, And then there's a point where, man, the bottom drops out. They get diagnosed with Parkinson's. And they can't work, and they can't. Now they've lost their identity, right? As this tough guy that brings in all the, that provides, and isn't very caring, isn't very kind, but I'm a provider, right? I'm the man. And now they've got to really re-examine themselves. So vulnerability is going to hit, right? The longer you wait to be vulnerable, the more pain that's going to feel like, when it happens.
Hmm.
It's always right. You're a dentist. Oh, I got a little pain on my tooth. I'll take care of it after vacation, right? And then you're 3 days into vacation in France. right? And now this tooth splits in half, right? If they would have just come in and said, you know what, I should probably go get this thing looked at, right? The longer you wait, the higher cost you pay. So we see people that are at the very beginning and they pay very little to come in and they save a lot of pain and anxiety in the future. And then we see people that, man, they can't handle they can't handle going to McDonald's today and having the ice cream machine not work, right? Or they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to pack it in. Like they've got so much on them. Um, so vulnerability is not an option. You're going to be vulnerable sometime. What's your support network going to be when it happens? What's your solution going to be? Um, and if you don't have a dentist already and you have a dental problem, now it's the mad dash trying to figure out, well, who's open? Well, who takes my insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's, oh, they have to have the dental surgeon come in. This guy can't do it, or this woman can't, right? It's this big thing. The more that we actually realize that community is important and we have the people lined up for the problems that we know that we're going to have in life, the better situated we are to be able to handle those, and the less price you pay for admitting and being vulnerable early rather than later.
So, is it fair to say that the power of vulnerability is sustainability?
Well, I think it's sustainability in the sense that you're going to be able to sustain the life that you want rather than sliding into the life that you don't want and either not knowing how to get out, or you know or being trapped in there, somehow, maybe by sometimes by self-choice, sometimes maybe not by self-choice.
Gotcha.
Vulnerability is, it's looked at as a weakness, but I can tell you, if you are a programmer or you're writing code, what's the first thing you want to know when you're getting ready to release an Apple update, right? You want to know what the vulnerabilities are, right?
Mm.
You want to know when you hop into you're going to go look at a new car, you're going to look on, you're going to look up car advice and try to figure out, hey, is this car dependable or not, right? We want to look at vulnerabilities in everything and judge it except for ourselves. We just want to brush all our own vulnerabilities over, right? We just want to put a piece of black tape over our check engine light and hope that it was just a sensor malfunction. Um, so vulnerability is, man, and it's the only way to live the life that you want. Be vulnerable. If you choose, right, with your broken heart, well, you know what? I got my heart broken. I'm going to start giving less every relationship. I can guarantee you're never going to get the relationship you want by giving less.
You
It
gotta,
doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
you gotta put in the work. You put in. Well, ideally, you'll get what you put in. When you put in a lot more and you don't expect to get much, that's when the exponential returns start coming in my
Well,
estimation of giving.
and I tell, and we talk to people all the time, I mean, myself included, I did this thing. Where's my reward, right? Where's my gold sticker? Where's my trophy? And, you know, our ego gets in the way and we feel entitled because we put something out that we expect to be able to see the return, right? That's not the way the world works. That's not the way. What you pay today, you may never see in your lifetime, but it may pay for your kids, or it might pay off for your wife. It may pay off for your community. You may never live to see it. I tell people that, if you are, familiar biblically at all with Moses, everybody knows all the stuff Moses did, right? He got the people out of Egypt. He did all these things. Well, Moses messed up, didn't listen to God, and he never made it into the promised land. And after everything that he did, right? And I'm like, I'm no Moses. You're no Moses. None of us are ever going to stand up to what Moses did. And he didn't reach his goal, his earthly goal anyway. So the whole idea that because we put something into it, we should be able to see the return on it, that's your ego getting in the way. And that's us trying to not be vulnerable and understand how life works. Life isn't fair. It's not designed to be fair. Sometimes you get what you came back in a way that you can understand it. You always get something back if you learn from it, right? The learning is the reward, not the money, not the girl, not the scholarship. It's how does this build character in you? What do you do with it? Do you cry because you didn't get a prize? or do you work twice as hard, right? It's up to you. The only person that ruins your life is you.
I couldn't agree more. I strongly advocate for setting long-term goals so that the failures feel like part of the process, you know.
Mhm.
And I think our obviously we can talk about technology and how it's kind of circumventing people's ability to spend that time alone to really write down those things, those I suppose actualization messages, or to journal our vision of our future. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's really required to get to a point where we're okay with those rocky parts of life, and we can come to terms a lot easier with the cards that we're dealt in a degree. Um, Very interesting. Thank you so much. I want to pivot a little bit for the sake of, I suppose, keeping our time together.
Sure.
Novel. I think we both deserve that. Um, what is it about? What is it about your life that that allows you to have the philosophy of a giver? Do you think it was something that you were born with? Do you think it's something that you acquired over time? Something that was cultural? Like where do you think this sense of giving, the quality of giving, comes from in a human life?
Well, I think giving comes from different places, right? You have people that were brought up to believe that giving is what you do, right? Whether it's from religion, whether it's from Christianity, and God gave us everything, whether it's through uh, Islam and the charity and those things, whether it's through whatever that is. A lot of it can be religious based, a lot of it, but then has to filter down and actually be demonstrated in the family. It's not what you say, it's what you do, right? So you learn from a young age that giving is something that has an intrinsic value, and it makes the world a better place. It makes your relationships a better place. I think you also have people that give because they don't think they're worth receiving,
Mm.
right? I've worked with a lot of people that from the outside, man, they just like all they do is give, 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 right? And they've got this reputation for it. But inside, they're hurting and they don't feel like they've got such low self esteem that they can't receive. And, I think early on when I met my wife and we would go, I was at a low point and we would go to her family or we'd go to friends. People would say just simple things like, "Hey, we've got leftovers," right? I'd be, "No, no, 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 we're fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." Or, "Hey, I needed help lifting something heavy," and I would break my back before I would ask, when I would ask for, for help for somebody. And I think part of it was because of my low self-esteem. Part of it was because of my pride. I don't want to look like I need anybody. I don't want to look like I need anybody's help or charity, right? Um, and I think what I came to realize is I enjoyed giving, but I was denying other people the opportunity to enjoy what I enjoyed. So it took me a while to get to the point where I don't care what you want to give me. I'm going to accept it and I'm going to be glad you gave it to me, whether I care about it or not, right? In reality, because fostering that sense that giving is important and that it is, I think it's man, it's such a great feeling to give and have somebody receive and be grateful for it. I think that brings to gratitude. How many times have you wanted to give something to somebody, maybe when you're single and you've got nobody, right? Man, if I only had somebody with me here right now to see this sunset, right? I'd love to be able to give this gift of being in this place and being together. So many times we don't have anybody to give to. And so many times we don't have anybody giving to us. So I think it's special to one, always accept things, give that person that satisfaction of being able to give. And I think if you've got an opportunity to give, then give. And, you might be the only person that showed that other person kindness that day. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, whether it's a, hey, you have a great day, whether it's what you say or whether it's, whatever it is. I think if you have a chance to give something, 99.9% of the times, whatever you have to give is free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it can be of great value to somebody else.
Yeah, actualize your potential catalyst. The world needs you. That's the catchphrase for Terabify.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I honestly believe that each of us has a gift, a very specific, special thing that we have the ability to give away. It's just a matter of, again, having that self confidence to be like, hey, maybe this is actually worth, maybe this is special and awesome enough to give something unique, something
Mm-hmm.
novel in life. Um, I wanted to ask. I'm sure you end up giving a lot of advice or recommendations to people that inquire about your services. It sounds like an amazing brand. Hell, I might have a fun time. Hopefully, we'll have some more conversations about this stuff.
Absolutely.
Um, when people are looking for novelty in their life, when they're looking for perhaps new people, new opportunities to maybe experience that vulnerability or to have a group of friends. Like I come across a lot of people that are highly productive, highly motivated, intelligent people that seem to claim to themselves that they don't really have any friends. And
Mm-hmm.
it always worries me because I see this in myself sometimes too. I mean, I've made a lot of friends over my life, but I've moved a lot, and that necessarily has made me come to terms with, okay, some people are able to communicate consistently and some people aren't, and you kind of just have to walk into these bubbles as it happens. Um, and obviously, I need to be a little consistent too to be able to communicate and keep up those relationships. But a lot of people don't get that circumstance where they have to move a lot, and it turns into a situation where perhaps their relationships turn stale, or they're looking for something new, or and so in those circumstances, what do you think are some good strategies for people to, I guess, break out of that shell and to restore their faith in life?
I think one, they've got to be vulnerable. I mean, when I talk to people that, like I said, there is definitely a friend crisis going on, especially among men. Well, what have you done to try to get a friend? Well, I haven't done anything. Right? I mean, so often I go to work, I come home, I mow the grass. Okay, well, you're going to have to make it, you've made work a priority, you've made mowing the grass a priority, right? So are you making creating friendships a priority? And I'm not saying it's easy, but have you undertaken a new activity, right? Are you going to church or synagogue, or do they have groups for people? Are you going to networking groups? And I talk to a lot of people that whether it's friends, whether it's networking. I've got like a little boy that's going to turn 6. I give adults the same advice I give him when he's going to go somewhere new, going to go to the playground or go to a new summer camp. Your job isn't, you're not going to make friends by showing up and being interesting. You're going to make friends by showing up and making other people feel interesting.
Mm.
That's what you do, right? Hey man, those are some pretty cool hiking boots. What are those? I'm looking for a pair. Oh, hey man, these are right. You hike a lot. Where's the funnest place you've hiked at? Right. I mean, you find something, you pick on it, you use it to open up. And hey, if they don't open up and they're not into that conversation, what did you lose? You complimented somebody. Still a win, right? Um, so I feel like people feel like, once again, it's a low self-esteem, it's a self-worth thing. People aren't going to think that I'm worthy of being a friend because I just do X. I feel stale. Everybody else is going to smell stale on me, right? But everybody else, most people are all in that same boat. And I think if you can go into any situation and you can just practice by going to the grocery store, There's somebody at you're going to have somebody at the counter. Hey, that's a nice necklace, right? Or hey, just get used to complimenting people. There's a you may have seen this guy. It is probably one of my favorite people to watch online. What's his real name? It's if you just look up the Greeters Society.
The
It's an
Greeters
Englishman.
Society. Okay.
Yeah, it's an Englishman, and he wears a smoking jacket, and he's got a very posh English accent. And all he does is show up places and compliment people, like everybody walking down the street, or he'll stand in front of shops and pretend he's the greeter for the store. He'll be at places like with celebrities, sports people, and he's just boom, boom. Everything he says, man, you just see people that are just walking down the street, and all of a sudden, just watching them light up, just light up, with the things that he says. It's amazing. And when's the last time, I think, when people that are trying to make friends, when's the last time you said anything that changed the look on somebody's face, right? That's your starting point. Get comfortable trying to change the look on people's faces, and then find things that get you out of your comfort zone where everybody feels kind of dumb. My wife wants us to start doing uh, Scottish dancing classes, and she's a wonderful dancer. I was a DJ forever, so I just kind of had to bop my head in the booth forever. Never really learned the dancing bit, so it's like, well, let's go do it. Um, you know, if you're not vulnerable, you're not going to make friends,
I love
and
that
that's
advice.
why being vulnerable early, right? You learn the value. You learn what you have to gain.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. It's a beautiful lesson in when someone thinks about this stuff a lot, to simplify it to its essence, the core of it. It's a natural byproduct of seeing this, and just really trying to, I like to use the word compost the life information, and
Mhm.
giving it some time to settle. And it's evident. I mean, your wisdom is incredible. Honestly,
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, it's all about if you can't apply it practically, what's the value, right? I went to Ohio State. My degree's in religious studies, and the head of the religious studies department at the time was a specialist in Zen Buddhism. And if you've ever tried to learn Zen Buddhism, there's like DT Suzuki, and it is purposefully described in a way that makes it complicated.
hmm.
And Dr. Tom Kasulis was his name, and he was one of the most probably brilliant people in the religious studies field. And his whole thing was, let's do it in layman's terms, right? Let's lay it out there so everybody can really understand what's going on. And I feel like there are the most complex ideas, philosophies, everything. There's somebody that can boil that down and give you something that you can do with it, right? And I think and it helps people to feel comfortable. And I think when people are feeling vulnerable and they're opening up, how can I make them feel comfortable so that they continue that journey, right? It's not too comfortable, right? But enough that they feel like it's a safe place to open up and let these things happen and work through these things. So yeah, I feel like, man, it's all about practicality. It's all about what can I walk out of here and do.
If there was if there was something that you'd like to leave behind in the world, like some sort of some philosophy almost. Um, do you have something like that you wish that all of your life energy that you spent to learn these things and pick these things up and obviously still apply and are still learning, um, do you think there's something, perhaps a statement or a series of statements that you'd like to leave behind on this planet?
I don't know that I really thought about it in those terms. I would say that, man, I would think if I just what are my sort of knee jerk reactions? What are some things that come to me? I mean, one is don't wait.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't know how much time we have on this earth. right? We just don't know. Um, and I think people live their life thinking they can get around to whatever it is that's going to better themselves sometime later in life. And sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't, right? Don't wait to ask the girl out you've been wanting to ask out, right? Don't wait to change your diet. You know that, quit drinking Mountain Dew, right? Don't wait to whatever it is. And if you don't wait and you do it and it's not right for you, guess what? Don't wait again and change it to something better, right? Just keep doing that. I think the other thing is don't, my son being almost 6, he has a very impressive sense of his own accomplishments and skills where he will find something and make something and we're like, oh, hey, would you like to take classes? Oh, I already know how to do that, right? Would you like to take music lessons? Oh, I have a guitar. Well, I already know how to play guitar, right? It's a sense of I already got this mastered. And I think when we feel like we have something mastered, that's when we stop, right? And I feel like always feeling like that there's more to learn and there's more directions to go in, more things to discover, more things to I want to I want to be with people that feel like the more they learn, the less they know, right? Those are the people that I feel good being around because the ego is always less, right? That sense of pride of self is always less. And I think the pride of self, man, that gets in everybody's way. It absolutely does. It keeps us from being vulnerable. It keeps it the us show. And it just locks other people out in a way it's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for anybody. And people will ruin their lives over not wanting to lose face or lose their position in the community or admit to things that they've done wrong. So I think pride is something that I personally struggle with. I think most people do. So let it go, man. Just let it go and be vulnerable.
So in particular, what I took away, just to synopsis, is
Yeah,
don't wait.
I know
Always,
it's very
always.
tidy.
No, I mean, I just, I try to, because I know some of the people listening, they, I just want to have that. So don't wait. Time is of the essence, and make
Hmm.
sure to constantly be learning that the top of one hill is just the bottom of another journey, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's
And then I would have to say on top of that, I think along with that, um, I mean, it's forgiveness. I mean, forgiving, holding on to grudges, holding on to pain, holding on to, things against other people. And then self-loathing, not forgiving yourself, looking back at every little mistake that you've made or looking at them cumulatively and feeling like, man, I've ruined my life. I've ruined other people's lives. I'm not that there's that sort of, not worthy kind of feeling. And I think every time I see a clip of a family that are in court and the person's being sentenced that just killed their kid in a drunk driving accident and they go over to that person on the bench and say we forgive you, I think about what am I holding on to, what am I holding on to, right? That's just worthless. And the thing is, it's like all the things that we hold on to and that we don't forgive, they're not hurting the other person at all, right? You're off doing your thing. I'm the one carrying that weight around, especially in cases where the person's dead and gone, right? And man, we just hurt ourselves so much. So I would say, don't wait, keep moving, and forgive along the road.
including particularly yourself. It's
Absolutely.
yeah, the philosophy of being a good friend to yourself is something I
Mhm.
picked up from the man that sits on a farm. I don't know if you ever saw those YouTube videos of that, like he wears like a hat and he's like a farmer and he talks about life.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he was talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
how to spend time alone and how
Hmm.
incredibly valuable it is to foster that friend voice in your head. Like go
Mhm.
ahead, like encouraging, or take some risks, or what you would want your best friend to say to you. It's it makes a drastic difference. We spend so much time. One of my fundamental philosophies is, as living organisms, we spend a lot of time alone, right? Like we
Mhm.
assume that we're part of these communities and we have families and stuff, but there's a significant amount of time that we spend alone, and one of our natural states is silence. So it's not always stimulating. Um, Thank you so much for your incredible time and words. I guess I'll ask some personal questions just to exit out here. Um,
Sure.
where do you find the most happiness in your life these days, or the most satisfaction in your life these days?
Yeah. I had a wonderful chance to. I've got some older daughters from my first marriage, and I got remarried, and I've got my little boy. And man, I just look at parenthood so different, and just I think I cherish, and I've been, because of what I do, my time is a lot different than it used to be. When my girls were little, I was working, I was gone all day, every day, just have the weekends, and now I can craft my schedule, and I've gotten to spend so much quality time. I think more time with him before he's 6 than I did with my daughters, by the time they were 18.
Wow.
And I think just being out with him and trying to be that person that's going to set that example, and just watching his exuberance and his excitement for life, and being able to share that with my wife, and our family. And so I would say definitely, it's that family time and fatherhood.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard having children is one of the ways to bump your happiness in life to 11. It's just something. My brother has a six month old, and
Yeah.
just watching my mother interact with a 6 month old, and she's been through a lot in her life, and
Mhm.
it's it's a human thing, to connect those two generations, even, or just to have your own kid. I look forward to it one day for sure. Um, is there anything that you wanted to say or talk about? I kind of guided the conversation this time around, and obviously this is probably going to be one of hopefully many conversations. I would
Sure,
love, love,
sure.
love to get some of your techniques and how you parse through people's problems too. But yeah, anything that you wanted to say, or maybe questions that you have.
Man, I just enjoyed the conversation. I feel like we have so few meaningful conversations, especially man to man. Everything tends to be surface. It's about sports, it's about weather, it's about work, it's about. So I think having the opportunity to foster relationships where you can actually sit down in a non-scholastic way, right,
Yeah.
and have a good conversation. I think it's so important. And man, I don't care if you've got 10 friends or you've got one friend. Um, being able to, at least, if you've only got the one friend, hopefully that's a friend you can get deep with, right? But yeah, I just think it's important to talk. I think the more that we talk, the more we realize what we're saying that we really believe, and what we're saying that we don't have a lot of belief in, right? And I think
Mm,
then having the courage to jettison the things that we know, we're not really deeply rooted in. I think especially now it's hard for people. Everybody feels, I think most people feel like they chose a side, right? And however bad or off the rails that side goes, they're very reticent to acknowledge it, right? Because then it looks like they went to the other team, right? Um, so I feel like, man, just get off the teams. Just, you know get out of the macrocosm and get back to the microcosm, right? And just have if it starts at one, and then it's a little group of two, and it's a pod of five, whatever that is. And just don't be afraid to speak. I don't care who you are, what the society is. When people are afraid to talk, afraid to exchange ideas, I mean, things never go in a good direction. They just don't. They just don't. Oh, for our, I will mention this, and we're not trying to solicit
no, no, no.
votes or
Please
anything.
go ahead.
But the new Best of Dayton came out today. The voting started today, and we are one of three facilities that were listed for best mental or recovery health organizations. So there's three folks to vote for. The other two are pretty big. We're the little David, and they're the Goliaths. And I know they do good work. Both of them do, and they're fantastic. And I think it's great to when you can have recognition, that man, it's just an important part of people's lives, along with, best wings or whatever else is out there, right? It's part of who we are. So we felt really good to be nominated, and just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Well deserved. I mean, clearly the heads of this organization are thinking about the true impact of these conversations and wisdom and application in life. So I will certainly go on there if the votes are still open and get you.
Yeah, yeah,
And right after this, I'll probably post an Instagram story saying to check that out as well if you wanna send me the link.
will
Um,
do.
yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And honestly, I look forward to working together at some point because my
Sounds
patience,
good.
it's I'm always looking for out of the box but very poignant solutions to some of the harder problems in life. And an
Mhm.
organization like yours, I mean, there's very few people in the world that are doing this type of thing. And the fact that you're local and the fact that we met, I don't really believe in coincidence anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I would definitely be sending some patients your way. Do you take state insurances? Like how does that?
No, we are self-pay.
Okay.
We don't, since we don't diagnose and we don't prescribe, we don't provide codes.
Right.
Insurance lives and dies by the code, right? We
Right.
don't we don't do code. So we say insurance doesn't accept us. Um, we are self-pay. The difference being is that the way that we are able to work with patients, and the process that we use, man, it works so much quicker than traditional. And I've done traditional therapy. It's so much more collaborative. There's so much more accountability. It provides so much more opportunity to get to the root causes early. That, man, this is not our goal is not to have you as a client for whatever you came in for. It's to help you move through it and move on.
Mm,
And there may be multiple issues that people need to work through. Sometimes, man, it's just a there's something immediate that needs attention. So we work with all different kinds of people, self-pay, but it's like what else? People have to choose what's most important to them and where they want to put their money. I think we all get to the point where, as much as I don't want to go to the dentist, there's that point where I can't ignore it anymore. I got to go to the dentist, right?
too much
Whatever it
pain,
costs,
you know.
take care of that tooth, right?
So where
Um,
where where do where do the where does the audience find you? What's the best place for them to get in touch if they're looking for some
sure.
assistance or looking to hire you or get a podcast with you, What's the best
Sure.
place?
Our website is www, of course. It's a visitbetterdayscenter.com. So visitbetterdayscenter.com. Most of our clients over the years and currently they come from personal referrals, which is fantastic. As we've added capacity, and we've gotten so many positive, I think for our size or in Centerville, if you look up, uh, if you're looking for counselors or therapists or that sort of thing. I mean, we are practitioners, we are not therapists because we are not psychologists or psychiatrists. I think we've got more reviews and all 5-star, I think, of anybody in the area, which is it just, that's not about a pride thing. It's not about, I'm just grateful that people feel like they've made positive, they've made a positive impact in their life, and the clients do the work, right? We're here for them, but they have to go through it and do it and want the change. Um, so we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, but yeah, we're here and willing to talk to people, and they can figure out if we're a good fit for them, and we'll go from there.
Nick, and correct me if I say this incorrectly, Iliopolis?
That was my old DJ name.
Aha. That's what you're
So
showing up here, but go ahead.
yeah.
What is the
Wilson.
last name these days?
It's Wilson.
Nick
A lot,
Wilson.
a lot, lot more simple. Yeah, I was a DJ for years. I ran record shops. I had a record label, and everything I did, I always used a fake name for, because it wasn't about me. I wasn't trying to. It was about. I just wanted people to enjoy the thing I was doing. So there was a time when I worked at NPR station in Columbus where I was on the station with three different names. I was doing underwriting sales, so I was just Nick Wilson for that. I had a DJ mix show on Saturday night where I was Nikki Iliopoulos. That was that
That's
one.
the one, okay.
Um, and then I was doing a morning show as Reg Stively.
Well, wow, what an array of cool names you picked
Yeah.
out.
So I would talk about myself, my other person. People would ask about my other personalities. I'd be like, he's pretty stuck up. I don't really like him that much. I would like talk trash about me. But
I
so
love it.
yeah. That's
It's
Iliopolis came about. I lived in Illinois for a while. We were driving to go see Frank Lloyd Wright House, and we're driving through rural Illinois, and I saw this sign that said "Welcome to Iliopolis," and I was like,
I'm taking
I
that.
did a, I did a lot of hip hop and break. I did all this stuff then, and so I was like, let's see, Nikki Iliopolis, and that's where that came from.
Well, Nick, Mr. Nick Wilson, absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
I am going to be inquiring about some other conversations. I don't think we're done here yet. And again, if you guys want to check out anything that the Better Days is doing, www.visitbetterdayscenter.com. It's located in Centerville, Ohio. If you are looking for their services, and well, I'll be posting some stuff and certainly inquiring about some more conversations. So thank you so much, boss. I guess I'll stop the recording here, and then we can talk about some future plans if you're interested.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.